Hi, and welcome to this week's solo episode of the Guestlist. I am your host, Steve Guest. And today I wanted to have a discussion all about dealing with rejection. It seems to be something that's perhaps cropping up in conversations within the Facebook groups and on posts across social media. I think it's also something that I suppose perhaps becomes more apparent as we get into the colder, darker months. Things are not necessarily as bright as they are in the summer, and we start, I suppose, feeling perhaps the levels of rejection a little bit stronger. We're also at a point where we've had a tough couple of years with COVID and lockdowns and pandemics and everything else that's happened around us. And I think as we start to wind down towards the festive period, we perhaps start to let our guard down a little bit more. Maybe we're starting to evaluate what we've achieved in the year and we haven't quite achieved what we set out to get. There's a whole collection of reasons. And I think sometimes when we get to this part of the year, things become a little bit more real. And we start thinking about plans for next year and are we in a position to go out and achieve those. So I wanted to discuss this. I wanted to work through and perhaps talk through some methodology and some ways in which I've found dealing with rejection and perhaps how it's helped me. And if I think back, we're all faced with rejection on any given day, week, month or year. And it covers all areas of our life in different facets and different levels of rejection. And I suppose we all cope in different ways. We all have our own mechanisms. Some will deal with things better than others. Some will have a coping mechanism that gets them through it, and others won't, and others will feel it a little bit more deeply. And I think there's lots of avenues that you can look at as an individual. When I first started recruiting, many of you will know that I was told I didn't fit the profile, wasn't salesy enough, wasn't confident enough, would never make it as a recruitment consultant. And that hurt, that level of rejection where it's, I suppose, a slant against my personality, my character traits, and who I am as a person. I sat there knowing that I could do the role and I could add value and I could be a good recruiter. Being told that you don't fit the profile and you don't have the right character traits is tough to take. But in many ways, I use that level of rejection as my fuel to my fire, and it's made me into the person that I am 16 years later. And having achieved everything that I've achieved so far, I think the rejection has been the catalyst for my success in many ways. And I could have left the interview with that feedback and thought, you know what, I agree, recruitment's not for me. Maybe I'm not set up to do it. But I didn't. I used it as energy, I suppose, and it allowed me an avenue to prove them wrong and actually made me go and do better than most, be better than average, because the rejection, yes, it hurt, but actually I could use it in a positive way. So I think with elements like that, depending on the rejection, you could potentially use it as a path forward. Over time, I've had bad reviews for Top Biller, my book, where people haven't enjoyed it or haven't seen any value in it. And that can hurt when you get a 1-star review on Amazon. It's not pleasant and it can stay with you. But we've all got a right to an opinion, and not everybody is going to enjoy the book. The majority do. The reviews have been excellent in the kind of main. So it takes a bit of getting used to. I think in terms of how I've dealt with the rejection of the book, I think I just have to view it on the fact that if J.K. Rowling can get 1-star reviews for her books, then I'm not in too bad a company. So it's going to happen. It's always going to be there. We get internet trolls where they'll put comments on posts we put out on social media that are disagreeable or perhaps not nice. They might be very personal. They might be an attack on you as an individual. I've had that. And whilst the content wasn't nice, it wasn't pleasant, actually the positive impact of that one individual for me was fantastic, because my LinkedIn profile grew by 300-400 people in a couple of days, and the support and network gathered around me, which actually meant I gained a huge amount from that one negative element. And I think we often see rejection as negative, and quite often it can be, because it makes us feel bad. And in every essence of rejection, it is the dismissal or refusal of an idea or acceptance of an idea. And we have to get past that in some way. No one is immune to rejection. I think it's the ability to handle it and get past it that is the important bit. And it happens across work, home life, our environments, our social circles. And it's the ability to look at it and use it to our advantage. And have the right mindset to the fact that it's going to happen in some shape or form. Do we take it on board and have it as a showstopper? And it means you can't continue, or you can't carry on, or you have a sudden inability to kind of get over it? Or do we look at it from I suppose, a pragmatic point of view and think, okay, what can I do here? How can I advance? What can I use this for to ensure the next time it's more positive? I think the first level for me is just the acceptance of the rejection and understanding that it's there for a reason. And then the ability to transfer that rejection and the power of what it or how it affects you to then become something that's useful. If I think back to my early days of recruiting and sales, when I used to put my trust and effort into an individual turning up for work on a Monday and they didn't show up, obviously it affects me. It affects my results, my figures, my motivation, my overall trust in individuals to do what they say they're going to do. And it does have an impact. And I think for probably the first 6 months, I used to take it really personally, and it would have an effect. It would stay with me. I think back to things where I would have a permanent fee value on the board for a placement that didn't show up. And what I used to do was leave it on the board for days after actually the event had happened and gone. But every morning when I used to walk in, or every evening when I left the office, I would look at my board and it would still be there, which meant the lingering hope of the fee that had gone days ago remained in my thought process. So it started my day badly and it ended my day badly, and it stuck with me. And I think the ability to get to a point where you can remove the rejection as quickly as possible and move on, get past it, or find a way to improve or use it to your advantage is by far the best way to deal with it. For me anyway. It might not be for you, but to wipe that fee off the board and come up with a solution or a way that we're going to get a different fee or to replace that person with someone else was by far the best motivation that I could find for it. I think you have to embrace rejection. One of the best lessons I've had. So back in 2012, I invested in my education to get involved with FX and commodity trading. So that was dealing with foreign exchange currencies, commodities, stocks and shares, and trading them in terms of swing day trading, and getting involved with stock charts, FX charts, understanding the peaks and the troughs, buying and selling, and getting involved with the movement of the trades. And I would have certain strategies that I would work to, and you'd be looking to trade a strategy the moment the setup occurred. And obviously you're risking money. You're having a drawdown from your account every time you place a trade. And once you place the trade, as long as it matches your criteria, you're in it. Whether you think or assume it's going to win or it's going to lose, you remove the emotion and you're in that trade, whether it hits your target or hits your stop loss, and whether you win or whether you lose. And I was taught a valuable lesson during that 12-month of education. And it was this, to this point, that every trade you take, you've got to see it as one trade in 1,000. If you can always think with that mentality, you remove the emotion and too much focus on any one specific trade. So if you were to have 5 trades in the week, and let's say the first 3 trades were losers, it shouldn't stop you from taking the 4th and 5th trade, because the 4th and 5th could both be winners and would far outweigh the 3 losers. The moment emotion became part of your thinking, or you think, oh, those first 3 trades lost, so I'm going to tweak the strategy, or I'm going to change something, or I'm going to use my emotional state to make a decision on the 4th and 5th trade. That is where you end up losing the 4th and 5th trade. And don't get me wrong, when I was trading, I did use and fall into the trap of using emotion, or perhaps not trading the 4th and 5th because the first 3 had lost. And I think I brought that into my way of working and belief system, in that over the year, I will make a certain amount of permanent placements and temp placements, and some of them will not work. Some of them potentially will credit. Some of them will fall out at interview stage. Some will fall out right at the start. It's the way of the world. We are dealing with human beings who can be brilliant and random at the best moments. And I think, whilst it's not, I suppose, a direct comparison, when I'm placing people or when I'm going through the process, I still have that ability to remove the emotion and look at things in terms of it's one trade in 1,000, or it's one placement across a number of placements during a year. And if things go wrong, if things happen, if I deal or face rejection, it's about being honest with the process. Have I done everything I've needed to do? Have I asked all the right questions? Did I challenge at the right places? Did I shortcut at any point during the process? Have I jumped from A to C and not covered B? Did I do something or not do something that I should have done that would have enabled me either to have come to a decision early on in the process? If I've covered the process properly and I've done everything to the best of my ability and it still hasn't worked, it becomes the one trade in 1,000. Sometimes there's nothing you can do, but taking it personally, having rejection that consumes you or stops you from moving forward, isn't a good place to be. So you've got to come to some sort of mental state that allows you to get past it. And this could be all manner of things. It could be you go for a walk, you go and clear your head, you go outside and scream in the car park, whatever it might be. You've got to have something that suddenly snaps you out of the rejection state and that ability of, I suppose, paralysis, where you feel you can't get past it. You've got to come up with something or some mechanism for the way that you can deal with it. And I hope that goes some way to helping you start to think about the fact that rejection is all around us. It happens all the time, in all shapes and forms, and it can either make us or break us in many parts. And I think if you want to be at elite level, if you want to be hugely successful, if you want to do things that you are in control of and be proactive with it, people are always going to be, I suppose, putting their opinion across or trying to stop you at some point. And you've got to use it, accept it, sometimes take it on board and change perhaps what you're doing for the better in order to make sure that that rejection pushes you forward. I hope that this podcast episode has been useful to you. I'd love to know some ideas if there's topics or subjects that you'd like me to cover and discuss. If you know anyone that would like to be or should be a guest on the guest list, then make sure you get in touch with me. steve@sguest.co.uk. Please like and share and subscribe the podcast wherever you are. If you haven't written a review yet, please write a review. Hopefully everyone listening will be giving the 5 stars, not the 1 stars, but all reviews are welcome. Trust everything is good. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I will speak to you all soon.